Hi everyone, my editor is out this week here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of this new Travis Scott album, Utopia. Travis Scott, Houston-born rapper, singer, producer, songwriter. Love him or hate him, he is one of the most influential artists in all of modern hip-hop, popularizing a grand, progressive, and psychedelic strain of trap music that has made for one of the most dominant waves in mainstream rap this past decade. Albums like Rodeo and Birds in the Trap, Sing McKnight, as well as Astroworld have inspired countless offshoots and established Travis not just as one of the biggest rap artists of this generation, but also one of the biggest brands in popular music. This man's been on quite the run for some time, racking up plaques and endorsement deals. He literally had a McDonald's meal that coincided with a clothing line. Drip. But it's difficult to function both as a brand and as a person, because so much ends up sitting on the shoulders of that person. I mean, McDonald's itself is one of the most terrible and exploitative corporations on the planet today, plus the food is mid. But they're not a person. They're a logo. Anything and everything they do tends to get spread out amongst the faceless organization they represent. With Travis Scott, it's different. When something does go wrong, there is a human, an individual to direct your anger and blame at. So rewind to the disaster that was Travis Scott's Astroworld Festival back in 2021, where a deadly crowd surge took the lives of multiple people, shut the entire thing down. And this past June, Travis seems to have been legally cleared of any personal responsibility for any of it. But from all the footage we've seen of what happened that day, clearly he didn't respond as sensibly as he could have in real time to some pretty obvious red flags, namely a festival personnel vehicle entering the crowd. Plus, in the wake of this tragedy, there have been numerous stories about how emergency readiness at the festival was pretty awful all around. So this was easily one of the saddest and most awful stories to come out of the music industry in a long time, and was clearly enough to set Travis back quite a bit personally and artistically. I mean, it clearly contributed to the Utopia album cycle being pushed back, and only time will tell how all of this will potentially impact conduct and attendance and safety planning at future Travis Scott concerts. Either way, it's been almost 2 years since that terrible night, and Travis seems to think it's finally time to move on and that it's safe to kind of let go and just start operating as normal. And with that enters Utopia, whose promotion was mostly weird photos of collaborators holding briefcases, a boring lead single, and multiple album covers getting shelled out. Now, going into this record, my prime worry was that we were going to get another Astroworld or just a watered-down version of Astroworld. And don't get me wrong, I do love the sound that Travis has forged for himself over the years, but historically, Travis has been an artist who tends to rest on his laurels a bit, with Birds in the Trap mostly sounding like leftovers from Rodeo. And while Astroworld did do a pretty good job of expanding Travis's psych trap sound, it still kind of felt like it was operating by a similar formula at the end of the day. I point all this out to say, I am so glad that Utopia does actually show Travis changing things up, doing something different, taking a risk. And while yes, there are some similarities and parallels to his previous work, they are mostly conceptual and in the abstract. For one, the sounds and dense track list on this project are immersive and feel like Travis is not just giving us an album, but bringing us into a world, which sounds very woo-woo, but you know, in a way, Utopia is a place, be it in your mind or somewhere else. This record truly does feel huge as Travis continues to excel at creating these kind of panoramic IMAX type records, even if the content and execution at times can be a little too simple or middlebrow. I suppose in a way that's the magic of Travis Scott. He can use production and features and framing within his records to make it feel like you're taking in something deep and life-changing while not actually giving you much food for thought. But for me, Travis Scott makes really fun, colorful, and slightly left field ear candy, which I'm happy to binge on so long as we're not bullshitting ourselves. I mean, even the opening statement of this project doesn't really seem to know what direction it wants to go in. The situation we are in at this time, neither a good one nor is it so unblessed. It can change, it can stay the same. I can say, I can make my claim. The situation we're in as what, a species, a society, either way, it's just neither bad nor all that good. And it could change or it could not change. Truly a revelation. The lead vocals mutated with effects and the strange melodies they sing, definitely a lot more interesting than what's, kind of being relayed message-wise. So again, in that similar lack of substance kind of way, Utopia, like Astroworld, is very much an attraction, and I get the most enjoyment out of it treating it as such. Just kind of vibing to the chunky boom bap beats and springy chord progressions all over the intro track, HYAENA. Travis's rapping on this cut is still very much on point for him. We have some solid flows, some clever and flashy cultural references, some minor flexes too. One of many epic synth breaks throughout the record is also placed on this track, and I'm sure Mike Dean had a hand in all that. Whole thing feels like a really great movie trailer in that it leaves you wanting more, even if you didn't pick up a whole lot along the way. The following track, Thank God, I think has more to offer. More details, more phases, more everything. The instrumental is super sparse and mostly consists of some grimy bass and super twinkly melodies. Lyrically, Travis is going on about paranoia over the devil and having one life to live. And even though it's low-key for a majority of its runtime, it's really catchy, especially with those Thank God I Breathe Tonight refrains. We have an epic switch up on the back end of the track, beat changes, pace picks up with some even more solid rapping, Travis telling us how he's successful, that he can't be diminished or stopped. It is a dark and moody bop. The solid first leg of this record continues on to Modern Jam, which has a pounding party beat as its backbone, and it's topped with some freaky shouts and shots of industrial bass. Some huge synth walls as well, and vibe-wise, I'm really kind of getting like some old Theophilus London off this, or Kid Cudi, obviously a bit of Yeezus-era Kanye too. Now, sound of the track, great. Love the sound of the track, but Travis himself is still far from being a lyricist extraordinaire. This shit punk put it on the Bible. I like a bi girl on a bicycle. Then I bought a car, now she feel entitled. My dick so hard poking like the Eiffel. Which Travis kind of sounds as if he's taking himself too seriously for the obvious comedy of those bars to land. Maybe he could take a lesson or two from his very eccentric feature on this cut, Tizo Touchdown, whose unhinged and overly dramatic singing on the back end of the song is theatrical, it's nightmarish, it's sweet but also funny. But yeah, on this LP, Travis's talents continue to shine as more of a director, more of an arranger of ideas and vibes and thoughts and guests, which also rings true onto the track My Eyes, which kicks off with these cute, muffled little ambient synth passages. Feels like something from a Boards of Canada record, but Bon Iver's vocals are in the mix there. Yeah, Justin is doing his thing with some auto-tune. His vocals are beautiful, they're angelic. Eventually when Travis does come in, it sort of sounds like he's just awash in auto-tune too, and he's delivering some sad boy AI raps. Again, even though I'm not blown away by any emotional depth radiating off of the words on this track, the instrumental is beautiful and one of the most tender things on any Travis project, probably the most tender thing. And even though Travis is not really an artist I go to for that vibe, it somehow works and sounds amazing. The track list begins to flow and melt together a little bit more as we get shorter interlude type cuts such as God's Country, which build up tension for even more epic moments on the project like Sirens. The plucky guitar samples and skittering beats on this track are epic as hell. And again, very much feel like a class in, that Kanye production course, with the dusty drum breaks and kind of jarring sample placements. It's eclectic and feels and sounds like high art from another dimension. That's the sound of the track. Lyrically though, parts of this thing read like a Travis Scott festival ad. Or, no, I'm sorry, a festival, which will most likely be happening under another name, not Astroworld. Following this, we also have another major highlight on the project, that is Meltdown, which kicks off with a verse from Drake, who spits some of the most talked about lines on the entire album, and he's whispering through this verse. He's seething, he's getting petty, he's flexing the money he's wired, he's making gun sounds. He's talking about how he's melting down chains that Pharrell may have given him at one point. That extends into shots against Louis Vuitton, who recently lost a key designer, Virgil Abloh. I have no idea why Drake can't just let this go. It's so sad. He's just obsessed with one beef that he himself backed out of. It's pitiful, but I guess still entertaining to listen to. Also entertaining is the beat switch past this point that features Travis picking things up. Some Star Wars phaser shot samples too in the beat. And it seems like from here we're really trying to like embark on a multi-phase sicko mode formula, and it doesn't feel as exciting as the moment it's trying to relive conceptually, but still one of the stronger tracks here. I do think the album begins to nosedive a bit past this point, however. Like there's Fane, whose instrumental I love. The beat sounds like being trapped in an NES on LSD. But the Playboi Carti feature on this track that everybody's been hyping up takes forever to start, and when it finally does kind of begin, Carti's flows are so inconsistent and dodgy. It's like he just doesn't really know what direction he wants to go in. He also raps in this sort of very low, goofy register that I'm sure his fans will defend until the day they die. Plus, I also think Travis Scott associate Sheck Wes could have done a little bit more on this track too. But yeah, outside of the beat, I don't really get a whole lot out of this one. It was smart of Travis to bunch the Allegations boys onto one song that we could just kind of skip to get to Beyonce on the song Del Resto, which is also kind of a skip for me. Not because of anything B did. I actually think her vocal inclusion on the track is fantastic and kind of makes the whole thing. I also love the various rhythmic and melodic fragments on this very strange instrumental. The synth swirl that rises up under Travis when he really starts to rap on it. But overall, this song just kind of feels like a badly remixed leftover from Renaissance, as Travis and his producers really fail to do anything with any of the tension that they built up throughout the entirety of the song. There's no big drop, there's no payoff, there's no nothing. There really should have been a point in this 4-minute song where it like hit and really just unrelentingly just laid us out. Following this, we have the song I Know, which if you want to understand the vibe of this one, just read into the lethargic, moody, drugged out lyrics. There's some very groovy and nocturnal production in the backbone of this one too. There's not much in terms of builds or switch ups on this one, but the beat and Travis's melodic flows are so solid, it doesn't really need a whole lot extra. Then Topia Twins may be the most straightforward cut on the entire LP so far. It's just a banger trap beat with lots of grand keys swallowing it whole, and expressive, unhinged, and raunchy guest verse from Rob 49. He contrasts well from Travis's melodic flows. And we also have a 21 feature that is so good that it pretty much renders the one at the very end of the album irrelevant, especially with bars on that track about wanting to give someone the key to your heart, but it was frozen. It's like what a 13-year-old would say to a girl he's breaking up with. Either way, we have kind of a strange surprise on the following Circus
Maximus,
which kind of sounds like, yeah, just like a weird ripoff and variation of Kanye's Black Skinhead. Very odd Kanye song to pull inspiration from, even if Travis Scott did have a very key hand in some of the production and creation of that album. I suppose in a way Abel popping into this track vocally does elevate things a little bit. It's definitely better than the K-pop feature he provides later on the record, but overall I feel like we're just kind of hearing a lesser version of the same song, and it's still just kind of okay. Then we have
Parasail,
which features a legendary Swedish cloud rap artist Young Lean. Dave Chappelle seems to have like a bit of a vocal thing and a credit on the track too that comes across as very kind of fake profound and just not as deep as it seems to think it is. But either way, we get a very low-key and mushy instrumental on this one. Young Lean's vocals are so just overcooked with effects that the vocals just kind of are destroyed. Feels like an interlude moment that doesn't really add a whole lot to the record. It's just a mess. The following track, Schizo, is a bit better, but not by much, even though I was kind of excited by this thing being the longest track here at 6 minutes. But I don't think the various sections that comprise this cut add up into anything all that amazing. In the first leg, we get this kind of glossy, refined trap beat. It's very much a head nodder. Eventually, Young Thug slides into the picture and sounds totally in his element. There's a few midpoint beat switches, some reversed keys and drums, an eerie chord progression, even a jazz rap switch up at the very tail end. But there's little momentum musically or thematically being carried from section to section to section. So again, it kind of feels like we're skipping song to song in the middle of an album or something like that. Not only that, there's also the spare bar from Travis about how he's loyal and he has yay over Biden, but yet you're also the guy that had Drake throwing shots at him on Sicko Mode years ago, And you also have Kid Cudi on the album now, who very much currently, to this day, has bad blood with him. It's not like Kanye is featured on the album vocally or anything, although I'm sure if he was, he would come on here and say something absolutely insane. So maybe that's for the best. The features and strange instrumentals really make the next couple of cuts on the project, be that Lost Forever with West Side Gun or Love with Kid Cudi. And we do have some relatively strong final moments on the record too, even if K-pop did prove to be one of the weaker songs on the entire project, and really just like a Bad Bunny leftover in a way. There's Telekinesis, where Future is brought on to bring some moody vibes over a futuristic and watery beat, which is just soaked in saturated keys and bass. When Travis pops in lyrically, he's making a lot of allusions to living forever and wanting to enter into this afterlife. And the beat does sound like a heaven or a utopia of sorts. Intergalactic at the very least, but the track doesn't really catch on fire for me until SZA pops in at the very end, gives a show-stopping performance, one of her most passionate features ever, really giving Travis some gold to put on this record, thank God. And then the closer is an even crazier cross-section of guests, as we have 21 Savage again on here, and also James Blake, who's bringing production, he's bringing vocals, he's sounding like that English boy ballad angel that we know and love him to be. Really everything about this track to me is stellar and beautiful, except for, again, that very like sore thumb out of place 21 Savage verse, which I just don't think adds much to the song or the record at this point. The writing is super weak, and in the final moments of Utopia, I would like to hear more from the guy who's like supposed to be the mastermind of Utopia. But you know what, even though there are a lot of elements to this closing cut that are pretty and are intriguing and are alluring, it's kind of easy to tune out of Travis's final words on the record because he's not really saying a whole lot. Outside of that, he feels gracious to be doing what he's doing, entertaining people, going dumb, and he's also like listening to Coldplay. And post that point, we essentially get this, till further notice message that kind of says like, yeah, I'm pretty much done here until I'm just going to come out with another record that means fuck all. Which I suppose is the biggest takeaway that you can have from this Travis record, that there's not really much of any takeaway. It's just kind of fun ear candy that is stimulating and cool and intriguing while it's on. I think it's pretty entertaining. A lot of creative and colorful production across this thing, eclectic features and performances, a wild and dark and diverse album from one of the more aesthetically out there artists in the mainstream. There were definitely some low moments, but it's still a very quality and respectable switch up from Travis, who, I think tried something different here, and it mostly panned out. I'm feeling a decent 2 strong 7 on this one. Transition, have you given this record a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best, you're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like. Please subscribe and please don't cry. Hit the bell as well. Over here next to my head is another video you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, Travis Scott, of Forever.